Hey, Magic Weaver. Welcome back to the Weaving Magic podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Lilly.
And I'm Tara Webb.
Stumbled over my own name there.
Yeah,
Welcome back. I know that you have not felt as much of a break as we have because we prepped episodes and content for you guys, but this is our first time coming back to recording after a long pause.
hmm
Tara's had a baby.
hmm
Oh, little
Yeah,
cow.
especially because we've been doing every 2 weeks too. So like even more so because the episodes have been spread out, so it doesn't feel like
We
it.
haven't paused, but we have paused. It's
Yeah.
been really great.
Well, no, I guess we did. We took a month off technically, so on the podcast too. And it was really needed. Thank y'all for bearing with us as we just take that space. That's what we're all about. Is just when you need the space, taking it. We preach it,
Honoring
and
it.
so yeah, we preach it, so we should do it.
And we're both kind of going through a lot as far as our relationship with our body and our
hmm
mind and the way that we're functioning day to day. And we just wanted to chat about it and
Yeah,
be honest and vulnerable. I don't
yeah.
know. I feel like it's needed.
hmm I have new glasses, and I'm working on my hair, trying to get it back to its waviness,
You
and also
sound
like I don't,
so not thrilled by
because I don't,
this.
I don't even know like what it is, right? Like I don't know what my hair is supposed to be. I just remember seeing pictures as I was decluttering. Because if you ever feel like you don't like your body and your mind and like everything, just declutter your house, because it starts to like get you in a better place, right?
It does. I think I've said this on the podcast before and I will say it again. Your way your house is a reflection of what's going on inside
Yeah,
most of the
and
times.
your car too.
Hmm. Oh, I just
Um,
cleaned out my car. That makes me feel good. Thanks.
So yeah, I found a few pictures of like my hair in the past, and it's always been kind of wavy and frizzy looking. And so I wanted to try it. I've been thinking about trying the curly method, and I'm not doing the full curly method, but I'm doing like my version of what it will see and look like and everything. So that's weird. Plus, my glasses aren't as vibrant, but they're still like they have. I don't know if you can tell, they have glitter on them.
They're
There's
so
glitter.
beautiful. I love
Yeah,
them, but they're not that bright purple
they're
like your
not.
other ones
And
are.
and like we talked about, it will help when I actually put makeup on and have like vibrant colors. Um, And then my body is different after this one. I was actually chatting with my therapist about it earlier today, about the reason it feels so different is because I'm at an end. Like, this is the last time I'm going to be having a newborn, and actually feel like a mom finally. Like, my body has the mom body feel. And there's nothing bad with
Interesting.
that.
It
And
took
I'm
five
like,
kids.
it did. It took 5 kids. I have a pooch. And the pooch is beautiful, but I have a pooch. And I've never had that, right? Like when I pull my pants up, you can see that little bit. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful. I'm not like entirely obese and not
But
healthy. And like,
it's a big change. It's okay
it's
to
just
be
for me,
uncomfortable with
it's
it.
just, yeah. And I also have to like work with my mind too. So like when I was younger, my mom said, "Hey, you should probably suck that in a little bit." And it was like just a little bit
Mm.
of, not even fat, like it was probably just a little bit of skin hanging over. And it's not a big deal. So it's that, plus I have a really big chest right now. So my weight is higher because of all these things. And I'm also beginning to work out. So I know my weight's going to shift because of building muscle too. So all of these things with postpartum, it's just, I don't feel like myself. I feel like a frumpy mom. Not even like the I'm a mom 30 stage. I feel like a frumpy mom at the moment. So that's
Mm.
where I am. I told Alyssa I tried to put makeup on. Was it last week? I think, um,
Yeah.
or 2 weeks ago or something, because I wanted to see what it looked like with the glasses, and it felt like putting lipstick on a pig. And like those are
Mm.
my intrusive thoughts right now, and it's okay to have those. You can I kind of see them as like narcissistic thoughts. You just ignore them because you can't argue with a narcissist. You can't
No, you
like,
can't.
you know, you can't argue with them. You can't try to prove your point or anything. Just ignore them. So that's what I'm trying to do, is ignore my intrusive thoughts around how I look and my performance of showing up and just all of it.
Well, and also your pooch, well, this baby, the first time you have a pooch, you're still what, 7 weeks postpartum. It
Yeah,
takes a
yeah.
while for the swelling to go down and stuff, and it's fascinating to me that you, because like for me on baby one I had the pooch, and then
Yeah.
it took like 2 or 3 months, maybe even longer, for it to even get to
Mm-hmm.
what my body is now, of like,
Yeah,
oh, this is what
mine has
normal
been
is.
mine's been drastic. Like with my first son, I was actually so worried right after, because I nursed him, and my weight dropped to like 110 because of nursing so much, and I was worried that I was going to lose too much weight. So this
Mm,
is definitely like what I'm experiencing right now is the normal for people
mm-hmm.
who have babies, first baby, whatever. Right? For me, it's not. So yeah, it definitely is, and my
Sounds
body
like we need to
typically
take
pops
your
back.
scale and throw it out the window.
We
Because
probably
it
do,
can
but
be
Justin
it.
needs it.
Oh, well, maybe we need to set some
Because
boundaries with
I told
it.
him, except for being pregnant, this is the heaviest I've been, and by heavy I mean like 130. So like I'm not,
But
and he
it's
was,
heavy for your
it
body and
is.
what
Well, no,
you're used to.
it's heavy for what I'm used to, and I don't think it's heavy for my body because I'm 5'7", 5'8", and like that's a good weight on me versus
Hmm.
115, like 120. That's kind of lower. I look really skinny,
Oh, yeah, you're tall.
right? So like
Hmm.
the 130 is actually a good weight for me to have. Yeah, but I told Justin, I was like, this is the heaviest I've been besides being pregnant, and he was like, it's the heaviest I've been too. So we're going through life together on this mom and dad bod journey.
That's funny because I love that we're in two different places in our life, but it
Yeah,
always mirrors and we're
it
always twin
does.
flaming it, because Sean is also going through he's getting back into the gym and trying to
Mm-hmm.
find that balance of when to light a fire under his ass and when to be okay skipping, and the way his body is
Mm-hmm.
changing. So it's just fascinating. Yes, we are
Is he
on this.
enjoying how he like going to the gym and how he's working out and stuff, or is it more like pushing himself to do it?
He's pushing himself to do it and he
Okay.
hates it. And we're working on it.
Yeah.
Slow. Well, I am just proud of him for taking the initiative to go to the gym. And he
Yeah.
actually brought to me the other day, he's starting a new goal setting method with his company, and he was like, I'd love to bring it home and do it with you. And I'm like, let's do
Aw,
it. That's awesome.
that is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably
Um,
difficult too because your journey with your body right now is drastically. It's like you and him switched almost.
mhm.
Because
Well, and
no,
it's
not that you don't want to work out. It's just you can't at the moment. You're like
I
really,
physically can't. And I think
yeah.
that's a big strain. Not in, like, our relationship is solid. It's not challenging our relationship, but it is causing difficulty in communication. We actually had a very honest conversation the other day. I was like, I don't think you realize that on my good days, my pain level is still a 5 or a 6. And he had a moment of like, really? You don't look like you're in pain. I'm like, that's the point. It's a chronic pain. You can't see it. It's in, like, it's
Hmm.
starting to affect my whole body in new ways.
So what is
Um,
your pain right now? Let's give like so people can see.
my pain right now, I would say, is an even 5. I'm
Okay,
having a pretty good day.
and that's
So,
interesting, right? Because a lot of people think you know a good day is I'm a
0.
0. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so
I
like
haven't
looking
had
at
0
you,
in like 3
yeah,
years.
looking at you, it looks like you're a 0. That's the
Yeah.
perception that comes across, and then we have to shift in our mind. No, that person is actually at a 5 level, but they're it's a 0 of their 5, right? It's your it's your
Hmm.
current 0
Five has become my
baseline.
normal.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it's become my baseline. If I'm better than a 5, like, hot damn, that would be
yeah.
great.
I'm
But
gonna go
yeah,
run a
no,
second.
I if you'll see me shift a lot because my pain is in my back, and it's
Mm,
interesting how it's shifting into other areas of my body and moving through. And I think through lessons we hear in the spiritual community and in the wellness community about mind body connection. And when you start to experience chronic pain and chronic illness, it feels like this idea of you just need to heal your emotions and your body will follow, and validates a lot of things. And I never realized
yeah,
it until I've experienced it, right? And I've started getting involved in the chronic spoony side of the internet and
yeah.
communities. And I do think that the mind body connection is a very real thing, but I also think there are things that happen in your body that are just out of your control. And all you can do is help your body heal on the way and respect what it needs. I don't know.
Well,
It's been a confusing journey.
it's like a post that I had on Instagram recently on my stories that said basically, I can agree with medicine while also saying herbs have huge benefits and are very
Yeah.
important too. And I was chatting with our friend Raquel, who has been on the podcast twice, and she pointed out to me how it's the idea. She's like, I'm no longer a part of purity culture in any form. And I was like, that's so true because taking any medicine means you can't have any regard towards herbs. Like you can't be a naturalist by any means in people's mindsets. And that's a form of purity. Like it's choosing one or the other. You have to be pure this, pure that, versus
This
combining the black and white. Like it's like Harry Potter.
why can't people live in the gray? Like there is so
Because it's
much
too unknown.
growth,
Yeah.
but that's where the growth and expansion
Mm-hmm.
happens. We can't keep sticking to black and white. That is not
Mm-hmm.
the world, everything around us, nature, the way things operate. The one thing that they show us is that change is normal and inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of avoiding it, we need to learn how to live in it.
Yes,
I don't
we do. And that's how I see my views. I think your views are the same. Of like, just I can look at both sides of things, and like I will use it as something very drastic, right? Shooting guns, right? I can see the person's perspective, and while I drastically disagree with it, I can see it. That doesn't mean you
Mhm.
agree with it, but you have to be able to see the other person's point of view to be able to have the healing that needs to come across our world. Is like,
Well, that's
I
called empathy, and that is hard for a lot
what?
of people,
Well,
apparently.
because if it's not like up their lane, they're like, why would I have empathy towards that?
I don't think I think it's more than that too. I feel
And
like
this is coming from
it's.
Sheldon.
I feel. Oh my gosh, it's funny that we both have been compared to Sheldon.
We have.
Um, I feel like people lack empathy when the way that you live your life is challenging core values of who they are, and they're correlating their worth with their values.
So what's fascinating to me is that ADHD, autistic, neurodivergent, I'm trying to find probably the LGBTQ community, etc., right? We have all been taught that we have to hone our empathy
Mm-hmm.
because in some ways it's easy to like step away, right? We get too involved, so we step away. While on the reverse of that, neurotypical, you would think would be the ones who are more empathetic and in some ways see black and white easier. And maybe that's making a huge generalization. I'm sure it is. It's just I feel like it's easier to see it when as someone who has ADHD, um, I've had to find my empathy, but also like be careful how you use it. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and I feel like neurodivergence, again, these are very broad generalizations, but
Mm-hmm.
speaking from an autistic perspective, ADHD perspective, those are things that I struggle with. But, or let me rephrase, I don't struggle with. They are part of who I am and I accept them. And I accept that my brain works differently. We're just going to reframe
Our
that for a
brain,
second.
we think that our brain's neurodivergent is basically what we should be doing, right? Because no one's meant to be sitting in the desk for 8 hours, 7, 10, whatever hours for like it's not. So
Well, and I
you're the
think
norm.
so. Yeah, the norm. No, I think so. It's fascinating because I think with neurodivergence, the point is that you struggle with these social constructs and boundaries because you are absorbing so much information at once.
Yeah.
I know, like, for me, the example that resonates with me, and it may not resonate with you, but it resonates with me, of when I go to eat at a restaurant, I hear all of the clanking of the plates and all of the conversations while somebody is trying to have a conversation with me at the same time. And I'm noticing my kids, and it's too much. I cannot hold a conversation because I'm absorbing too much stimulus at once. And so I think that autism, neurodivergent, and ADHD people are the highly empathetic people because we
Yes.
are taking in all of the information as our own and we're struggling to process it. And so we
Mm-hmm.
struggle to understand which emotions we're holding on to are our own and which are other people's.
And once again, people who have all these within themselves, it's not the same because you hear
Mm-mm.
all the noises, and I hear them too. But mine is I get more overwhelmed in my immediate space and how it like affects the
Yeah,
outward
we both
space.
have sound sensitivities, but they're very
Yes,
different.
they are. Because like you can, like you said, you hear everything, and that bothers you more so than like if your kids were being loud right there just beside you,
No,
probably.
that bothers me too. I've gotten my loop plugs, but it definitely
Yeah.
isn't as intense as when I'm out in public.
So we have this one restaurant we go to. It's called Mimi's dim something. It's like dumplings, and I think it's Chinese food, and it's like really authentic, and
Is
I
that the
love
one you
it.
took me to?
Nope, you haven't been to it yet. It's really
Ooh.
good. Yeah, we're going to a few new places. But when you walk in, and they've never said anything to us, they're very like, oh, you have 5 boys, and just like they're so like just kind about it. But when you walk in, the place is naturally quiet. The people that go and eat there are naturally quiet. So when I take me and my 5 boys, and my husband's there, and I'm just like, and Dominic is in this thing of like, hey, like he's so loud intentionally so he can be heard. Especially like when they're in their car and him and Elias are fighting. Elias, that's
Mhm.
mine. And he's doing it so like he gets our attention because he's loud and it's like, please stop. So we butt in, and so I have to tell Justin, ignore it because he's doing it to be loud so that we intercede and he's not going to handle it.
Mhm.
So when we're at the restaurant, it's like quieter there. So their normal sounds louder because it's quieter. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
this is a lot. Whereas if you go to a louder place, if they're loud,
It
whatever.
doesn't matter.
Not at all. Mm-mm.
Let's talk about the weird pressures that you feel when in society and having kids,
Yeah.
because I just had a friend stay with me for 2 weeks, and she's amazing, but she comes from a house where it's her and her husband and their animals, and they don't have kids. I've stayed with them before. It's very quiet, very serene. They keep their TV really
Sounds so
low.
nice.
I know. They watch TV and it's super low, and I'm like, what is this? And
Yeah.
so I was really nervous for her to stay with me for 2 weeks, and I enjoyed having her, but I felt this weird pressure of like, I need to constantly clean because she's used to a super clean space. And I went into
Mm-hmm.
this mode of like literally chasing my kids and picking up toys as they're done playing with them. I'm like, this
You're
is,
performing instead of,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I feel that when I go out in public too, because I'm neurodivergent. My son is autistic and nonverbal, and Aurora is also autistic. And so there's the way that we navigate situations is louder. There are
Mm-hmm.
meltdowns. We talk through things, which is very different. And then you have 5 kids, which in and of itself, you even said the restaurant was really nice to you about it because you have people who are not nice to you about it, that you have to think about it,
Yeah.
that you have to have that subconscious thought when you go out
Mm-hmm.
in public.
But
It's
and
wild.
there are people who are at the restaurant that are not workers, right? But they like are eating there, and you can just tell. And I'm the kind of person that even though it does bother me, I will never say to my kids, "Hey, be quiet," because it's bothering them. I will say, "You're being
Correct.
loud." I will
Mm-hmm.
address it. Like I'm not gonna just not because, dude, you are fucking loud. Like it's that's just life. But I won't do it because someone else has that expectation for me. It's more of
Mm-hmm.
like I see this and let's address this, but still be yourself, right? Like that. That
Mm-hmm.
is still like if one of them stands up and wants to dance just right there in front of beside the table. Hey, that's fine. They're not bothering anybody. If they're running around or dancing and like making big movements at the restaurant, that's different. So it's like addressing it, but that voice in your head still says like you should be keeping them in check because it
You
bothers
should
these
be the
people.
perfect mom, and you should have the perfect family, and you all should be
Well,
able to
it's like
sit
once
down and have a
again
perfect dinner.
being here on post. Housing has been really good about like not caring about how things look. And there's recently something posted about make sure you pick up your kids' toys, which by itself is not a big deal. But I'm also thinking like, okay, well my kids are home the entire day as homeschooling. I can't pick up their toys all the time and it constantly be clean like what you're expecting as an HOA would see, right?
Well, and your kids are outside all the time. It's
They
not,
are.
they're
And
constantly playing with their
and
toys.
even
It's
then
not that
like
there's,
if they do come back inside, like it takes a lot for me to then go out there and go, okay, let's pick this and this and this and this and this up. And yes, we do pick up our things, but it's just that perfection label of we want it to look a certain way, and it's like cool, but my kids are home the entire day. There's no way
Mhm.
that it's going to have that with it. And plus, we're just messy people. Like I've come to accept that we have a very tidy house, but it takes a lot on my part to keep it that way. Like we have the pressure
You
washer
have
outside
7 humans in your house. It's
and
going
two
to be
dogs.
messy. And 2 dogs. And
Yeah.
5 of those humans haven't quite grasped.
6.
True. Six of those,
Yeah.
let's be real, 6 of those humans haven't quite grasped the cleanliness that we hold.
I will say this for Justin. I appreciate this last night because he had Cal. And side note, we never said his name. My son's name is Highland Callisto because we didn't say it because we weren't sure. I think if we wanted to be 100% sure. So yeah, his name's Highland Callisto, and we call him Cal, and I call him Calico because it's really cute. And so he had Cal, and Cal had just pooped, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to change him or do you want to go do the dishes?" And he was like, "Do we need to do the dishes?" And I was like, yes, because that's the whole thing of like keeping these things tidy before, so we don't have to come downstairs to it. That's the whole thing of like what we're trying to really do is just keep things up so the next morning it's not a huge task, right?
It is such a big deal to me to be able to wake up to a clean home.
But that means you have to do it the night before, and that's always probably the most difficult. And so he was like, yeah, okay, tell me the diaper and I'll do it. And he doesn't typically change Cal because Cal's with me so much, unless like I specifically ask him. I do it. And because Ori's potty training and doing really well, so he's like on top of Ori's potty training thing. Like he's all over
Which
that.
that's a huge thing, yeah.
It is. And so I was like, can we like switch? Can I just change Cal and you go do the dishes? And he was like, yeah, sure. So he walks over and he does the dishes, and I'm just like, okay, not a big deal. Like I appreciate it. Like I asked him to do it, and it's done. And so we started to go upstairs, and he grabs the broom, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, because Dom had technically already swept, and he was like, well, that's part of one of the things you do at night is you sweep. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not going to because, I just can't. He's like, yeah, so I'm going to sweep. And I was like,
Aw.
okay. He goes, I like coming downstairs to a swept floor. It's like, I do too.
Yeah.
And so he's like, so I'm just going to do it. And I was like, I typically vacuum right after 2. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Baby steps.
But I mean, I appreciate it's something he realized that he likes it clean. He likes, because, we both don't like stepping on dirt and dog hair on the floor. It feels gritty. And he recognized, hey, I like this. She's not going to do it right now because she's tired. I'm going to step up and do that. And that's a huge step, I feel like. So he's getting there.
It is. And it's funny because this reminds me of a conversation I had with Sean recently, my husband, of I was trying to explain to him, like, do you realize that when you leave a pile of dirty dishes and you choose not to do them, because my biggest thing with my back is like bending over and getting into the dishwasher and stuff is really hard on me. And so I was like, you didn't do that last night. And when you refuse to do that, you're leaving it for me or someone else to do. And his response is like, no, I'm leaving it for me to do later. I'm like, but you're not. That's the thing, because by the time you get to it, I will have already needed those dishes or I will have already gotten to it. So it feels like you're just leaving it there for someone else to do.
Yeah.
And he didn't even get, like, it wasn't even something that occurred to him.
And that's what Justin and I have talked about, is like our levels of things. Like, your and my level of cleanliness is probably down here. Like it getting too dirty. It's like, I don't like it, right? Because we can feel it in our minds, we can feel it in our bodies, and it's just gross. Whereas Sean and Justin are probably the same. They're like up here. Right? Like it's
every dish in the house could be dirty, and then they'll be like, okay.
But even then, they might wash one dish and then load the rest of them afterwards. Probably
they'll wash the dish they need.
Yeah. And so like that's and so it hits me before it hits his level. And we also talk about this with sex, which I don't think we've actually talked about on here because of that wonderful episode that we had that we actually didn't share. That I have an idea for now. Anyways,
put a pin in that. We'll come back to that.
It's like, for example, if most guys, I feel like their level of like having sex is like every day, right? And a limit could be, okay, if I go more than, I don't know, a week or something, I'm just saying if guys are like this, that's when I can feel more frustrated, right? Whereas for me, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there are times when I'm like, I notice it would make me feel better, right? Like I do notice that, but I can still push that urge away because it's just not as big of a deal. So for us, it's like, okay, technically, even and we don't always follow this by any means, technically it's like our limit's like a week because we know he's hitting a point of where he's a little frustrated, both sexually and like in life. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, that'd be nice. And so we're meeting each other at the middle. As with cleaning, we're meeting each other like at the middle because he also like applies a lot of things to our kids and makes our kids do a lot. And I had this feeling of like, that's just not okay. Like, you need to do more, right? And then I learned how lazy parenting is actually good parenting because you're teaching your kids how to actually step up and do it. And
Fascinating.
and so like it's it fights in my head. It's like this huge battle of, yeah, but like we should also do stuff. And yes, we do. Like, they don't do everything in the house, right? But we should be giving them more tasks because that is actually good for them to have the accomplishment. They know how to do stuff
Independence.
later on. Yeah, all of it. But it fights up against me being like, but I want to do it. One, for them because they're my kids and I enjoy doing things for them. And two, and I'm very specific about stuff. I'm
Mm-hmm.
Sheldon when it comes to my house. And so it's like that fine line of it. But yeah, lazy parenting is actually very good. And so it's almost like Justin said, you want to not have a job when you have kids in that sense because they should. And we have five, so we have like a lot of things that they can like actually do. We have to find things for them. It's good for them to learn how to do all of that because I don't want my kids to go into the world and their
Not know how to
partner have to
upkeep a
do.
house.
No, their partner have to do it. Then again, they'll probably be the one out of it doing it. But it's just I want that to be a cohabitation thing.
Yeah.
And we've actually shifted with our chores and like allowance because I don't feel like there's books that really talk about this. I don't feel like maybe there is some, I haven't found it, but I don't feel like we were even taught this of how to put our money in the right places. Not just savings because savings gets like a tiny percent nowadays, and also that we don't give money for chores anymore. It's funny. I say we kind of have like a socialist environment in our house, even though Justin's like not socialist at all. And it's the idea that our kids get money every week because they're part of the family.
Yeah.
Like, even if they didn't do their chores in some ways, because we don't want to tie their hard work and their value in whatever to that, right? But also their chores, they do all of these chores, and that's not a lot, but they do a lot in the sense for our kids because they're part of the house. So it's not that you are getting paid for doing these things, because I don't get paid for doing the dishes. I don't get paid for sweeping. And it's them learning. We all live in this house, so we all do this as a family.
Mm, I love that.
Which isn't something you would, I think, really find very many places.
Mm-mm. No, I think that what I've seen a lot of, and something I was debating, of course, my kids aren't quite there yet, but when we get there, is having like, here's your responsibilities, here's the pay that you'll get for doing them, and here's the
Mm-hmm.
bills you have to pay, and like kind of
Yeah.
work with them on budgeting.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
And
I
so, and
like,
so, like what you're saying. So, for example, part of the new chores now is also adding in that they each have a day where they have like everything where they get to choose really fun things. So it's not just like all chores on that day. They choose really fun things, but they also like that's the day that they're going to help me cook, and that's the day they do their laundry. Um, so they like, and then Dominic is going to start every 2 weeks. He's going to start bill planning with us. Like, he's going to see how much money we make and what all of our bills are, and he's going to start putting it in a spreadsheet and learning how to do all of that. When our kids hit 13, they will pay for one of their meals that we go out and eat a month, which
oh, I
sounds
love
like,
that.
and Dom's like, why? I was like, because you'll see, like, his meal is maybe, I don't know, like $7, $8 a meal where we go. And at that point, he'll get $13 roughly a week if he doesn't do anything else. That's a good thing to see of like, okay, I get this much and this is how much my food is. Plus, he will pay half for his clothes too. So like he'll also will be showing him how important it is like to thrift for things, and if there's something you really want, saving up for that. And then when I
I
think
feel
he's
like your
like,
kids already do that, right? Where they save up for things.
they do, but I also buy them things. And I've stopped doing that because I've noticed, like, the toys we got Dom for his birthday, he really liked and wanted. And then it was like, that was fun. So now we're getting up because like that's your own trauma. You feel like when you buy a lot of things, and I also know the kids get overwhelmed. So now it's anything that they bring into the house, they have to take something else out.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think we're going to decide that whenever they're 16 is when they pay for their own clothes or something like that. Um, because we really want them to be able to walk out of our house and just understand the things that we don't typically learn.
How did we get here? I feel like our intention was to talk about our body relationship with me.
So we talked about and see, this is the whole thing about ADHD, how we go down this future. So let's talk about how our brains work. So we talked about our bodies and how we were feeling, which led to, like, I think how we were feeling with the house and how things looked and stuff.
And
Because
then
when you
kids.
clean, yeah, because when you clean your house, you feel a different way and you feel better about yourself. And then going out to eat got in there somewhere because we talked about the restaurant
Yeah.
and having multiple kids and how that felt. And then you said you have 5 kids who aren't, like, don't know how to do that kind of thing. And I said, well, 6. And then we got down that rabbit hole about the kids, which then led to money because then chores.
Yeah.
I feel like I've missed a few. So it's funny because, like, I know Alyssa does this too, of where we think of one thing and there's just like this huge little spiral,
Well, and I
and
love
you're
the
over
spirals
here.
too. I think our best episodes and chats
Yeah,
with you are this when we go down the rabbit holes and give ourselves permission. I struggle so much when we go into these episodes and like, here's what we have prepped, and it's like,
it just
well,
feels fake.
it feels forced.
It
Yeah.
does. And I can't imagine how people can stay on one topic. Like,
For 30
the
minutes.
like those who actually have a they can talk with you and they don't get the ooh, look at that feeling. Like, it's just my brain goes in these different little waves. And also, even though Justin is neurodivergent, because here's another little jump, um, he doesn't hear voices in his head. His head is quiet. I know. I'm doing hand motions and people can't see it.
Yeah. Unless you're watching on YouTube, which we encourage you to subscribe and go check out. But
So it's interesting because I've seen that post going around
do I
Instagram a
hear
lot.
voices?
Do you hear something constantly saying, when you look at the door, that's a white door, silver handle. What am I doing here? Da 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 da. Like, do you hear that?
No.
Mine does.
I see
Can
I
you,
see lists and I see images.
but when you sit somewhere and, like, actually just sit in silence, is your brain silent or do you hear things constantly talking to you?
I have to pause at that for a minute. I haven't thought about it. Yeah, I guess I do have an internal dialogue.
Yes,
Is
I do
yours your
too.
own voice?
Kind of, but it's not.
I
Right?
feel like it's weird. Wow.
And it's funny because I think Dominic's is the same way, but Thomas is like Justin. I think, or maybe it's reversed, one of the two.
I
And
never
like,
realized there was a
Justin
voice there. Yeah.
Justin can just sit there, and that's why he can, like, play video games or whatever for so long and just, like, be right there in it, because as relaxing, right, in some ways, as he's relaxing, because he doesn't have that internal dialogue. Mine is like, if I'm not talking, it's pointing out things to me.
It is. And I guess I did notice it. I guess I just hadn't really named it before because my inner critic talks loud
Yeah.
sometimes. And
Mm-hmm.
it is a voice that's definitely like, you should be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that when we're out in public and stuff. I guess I just never really thought about it.
Like, even as you're talking, I'm looking at you and, like, it's registering in my mind the blue hair and the, like all this kind of things. It's registering each little aspect in it as you're talking, and I'm thinking about that.
It's exhausting.
It is.
It's funny because I actually was having a conversation with a friend of mine who was on, they have ADHD and they are on medication for it now and they're trying it out. And they sat down with me and was like, is this how normal people feel? Is it this quiet for normal people? Because the medicine helped bring in the focus and quiet the mind. And it's just wild to me because my mind is always going. I have struggles. I had it when we were talking earlier, where my brain moves faster than I can spit the words out. And so I end up like, blah, blah, blah.
And that's what I was telling my therapist about with my typing. It's like I have all these ideas for my book. I'm like trying to get them out and I can't type fast enough. And then it stalls. And I'm like, I don't know what to say.
Because it's gone.
It's gone.
It was there and it's gone, and I didn't get it out fast enough.
Whenever I took ADHD medicine, and by saying that, it was because my brother was like, "Here, try this," and it was his medicine because he wanted to see what I
probably
thought
not the best way. No, don't do that.
But I had no idea that was actually illegal. Like I didn't know as a high schooler, you know. It was miserable, and it was probably the wrong medicine for me. I'm sure there would be something that would work if I tried it. I'm actually working with my therapist on possibly getting diagnosed after postpartum stuff. But it was awful. It was bad. I don't know if it's just because it felt so different to me, but I literally sat frozen. It felt like I couldn't move or talk. It was horrible. So that's probably not how it normally is. I can't even fathom silence in my head. I think I would feel scared and lonely because I've always had that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'd do with that. I'd say the closest time or closest feeling that I've gotten to that is being high on THC. I think that's probably the closest feeling.
But even then, silence has a noise.
It does.
And that's why whenever they're recording silence for videos or for movies, they don't record like no air or whatever. They take it. So like if you're for like The Office, if there's silence for that, they will actually take a microphone to an office and say, okay, nobody talk, but we're going to record office silence. And so office silence is like
papers moving and clacking. And
the silence is like that. Even whenever you're just sitting in silence and there's literally no noise, I still hear like the little.
You hear the birds chirping.
No, I'm talking like silence is like a crackling sound. Like
it is. Yeah.
Like, or it's like, it's not bells, but I'm trying to find a word to fit it. But when
crackle, I think, is the closest.
Okay. Because like when you're literally, and let's say it's nighttime, and you're just sitting in your bed. There's nothing else around. You just hear silence.
It's kind of fuzzy. I don't know. Crackle, fuzzy. And it's hard too to experience silence because I also feel like I hear the nightlight that's plugged in, and I hear I hear electricity, which sounds strange, but I realize is not, because there's a lot of people that actually experience that.
Yes.
But it's fascinating. Like I can tell when the TV downstairs is left on, even though it's a black screen.
Yeah.
I can hear when it's on, even when I'm all the way upstairs. I'd be like, "Did you turn off the TV?" Yeah, I did.
Well, and I can hear Justin's tonal as he's working out. It's like they've released the sound.
Yep.
And he says he can barely hear it while he's even doing it. Like,
oh no. That's so the way people's brains work is so fascinating.
It is. So what's our challenge?
I was going to ask the same question. I don't know if it's a challenge as much as it is maybe reflecting on
noticing.
Do you hear a voice in your head when you think? Or just the way that you process?
Notice what comes up in your head as you're just trying to relax. Like, I'm looking at my little baby.
Oh, he's so cute. I can't wait to meet him in a few days.
Yeah, but notice what comes up in your head when you're just sitting there. Like, even as I look at him, it's just the, oh, he's so cute, and oh, he's da-da-da-da-da. Like, it just, I hear that dialogue, or if it's just a picture without words.
Yeah.
I guess that's even interesting to kind of describe. I don't know how to describe that.
I think that's a good challenge. It's good reflection for you on this episode. And also, don't forget to check out our Patreon, where if you want to support us continuing to create amazing content, and we also give you little exclusives and little bonuses, and it's all in the details in the link below, but we'd love to have you over in our community. This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magick podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.